Welcome to the Leadership Think Tank. And today we're going to dive into a lesson topic titled Eat the Frog. Ribbit, ribbit. Eat the frog. Man, Brian Tracy made this saying popular. He said, if it's your job to eat the frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. So here we are. So get your forks up and let's dig in. So the frog represents difficulty and uncomfortable or high impact tasks that you'd rather avoid, right? That's basically it in a nutshell. It's the things I don't want to do, so I avoid it like the plague until it's the last thing that I have to do. But great leaders don't wait until later. They don't procrastinate. They don't let fear or discomfort steal their day. They eat the frog. All right. So what does eat the frog mean? Okay. It's the frog again is your most important and least enjoyable task. Right. So it's the conversation you're dreading, the decision you've been putting off, the project that takes deep focus, the area where growth demands discomfort, right? Or whatever the case may be. Leaders face frogs every day. But if you handle the hardest high value tasks first, you reduce anxiety. It's so important to prepare ahead of time, to know what you're going to do, to have a game plan. When you do that, it reduces anxiety, especially when you're getting up in front of people, your sales team, or your customers, or your congregation even. And then when you do that, you increase momentum because you got the hardest thing out of the way. Everything else is gravy compared to that, right? And you prevent procrastination from controlling the day. You know, there's that thing that you needed to do all day and it's been lingering at you, gnawing at you, and you've been putting it off. But once you get that thing done, everything else is pretty much smooth sailing. And then you gain clarity and energy for everything else, right? Because you got that big elephant out of the room. So why this matters in leadership is a leader must go first. A leader must take the plunge first, right? And so your team watches you do more than you say. Your team watches more what you do than what you say, right? Monkey see, monkey do, right? So when you tackle the toughest tasks early, you model 4 things. One is discipline, courage, prioritization, and ownership, right? You're taking ownership of that thing. And then others begin to follow your pace. I know my former pastor, man, he used to have me do some things that I struggled with, having a counseling session with someone or addressing an issue in the church that, he could have handled. It was probably more of his job to do it, but I was this associate pastor, so guess what? The lot fell on me, right? And so a lot of those things I didn't want to do, but it's like jumping into a jump rope, right? You're pacing and waiting for that time to jump in, and then you jump in and start doing it and hope that you don't get tangled up in the rope. But others begin to follow your pace. When they see you do it, they're like, okay, here we go, right? Out of all the things that was very difficult for me to do, I jumped out of an airplane and skydived with my daughter back about 6 years ago. And that's a whole nother story. But so I'm afraid of heights. I get air sick, seasick, motion sickness. So So it's a whole nother story, and it's a powerful teaching I actually wrapped around that because it was such a mind-blowing experience. But when actually stepping off of the plane, I just did it. I didn't even think about the repercussions. I just
Not good.
time, and I didn't do it, out of carelessness for my life or anything like that. It was just that I had no fear in that moment for whatever reason. And you'd think it would be just the opposite. Like I'm holding myself back, fighting, even getting close to the edge of the plane, and that's the way I assumed it would be. But when that moment came, we just did it. And it's crazy and an awesome experience at the same time. I'm glad I did it. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but
So did you have to look straight out instead of straight down in order to overcome all that?
14,000 feet high on that plane ride. And so you couldn't even see the ground, really.
Right.
You saw clouds and, blue sky. And so it wasn't like, when you are like up high in a building or something where you can really see the ground, it just freaks you out and takes your stomach. This view didn't take my stomach because maybe it was perception. I don't know what it was, but I saw out and I was without fear that whole time. And I don't know, it was crazy, but it was very powerful too, powerful moment. So my daughter chose this for her 21st birthday. And the way it went was, Dad, go with me. Now, this was on my bucket list to skydive, but it was way, 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 way like an inch from the ground on my bucket list. Where the ground is. And I said, well, babe, I don't have the money for that. She goes, well, I'll pay your way. I'm like, all right. So I don't have any more excuses. The guy that was suiting us up, he said, are you ready for this? I said, I don't know. We'll see. And that was exactly it. So listen, our point B here today is frogs don't disappear. Those pesky things just hang around. And think about this, ignored problems grow. Mm-hmm. Start backing things up. Sometimes all these other things will take place once you eat the frog. Once you do that thing you've been ignoring, once you do that, it's kind of opening up a floodgate and everything else can get done. And especially when your team is relying on you to take care of that frog so that they can do their business. Mm-hmm. So it's very important. Uncomfortable conversations turn into conflicts. How many know that we've sometimes put off confrontation or conversations because of the confrontation? And it's led to other things, led to other problems. We're hoping that if we wait long enough, it'll just work itself out. No, it just compiles. Delayed priorities become emergencies. Eventually, you're going to have to take hold of that thing and knock it out so that you can get on with your life, with your business, and so forth. Listen to this. Leaders don't wait for frogs to become monsters. Point C today is eating the frog builds trust. Teams trust leaders who do these four things, handle reality quickly. They don't hide from conflict. They make the tough calls and they confront problems instead of letting them simmer. And trust grows when leaders take on what others often avoid. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? That's hard. So there's three types of frogs that every leader must eat. Number one is a tough conversation. That's hard because now there's another person involved, right? So I'm thinking about how they will handle it, how it will be perceived. I start reading into it and thinking about how they will react. I'm thinking about my pride. I'm thinking of, all these thoughts come up to mind. But the tough conversation, right, is correcting behavior and addressing tension or sharing a hard truth. We talked about that last week in regards to that 1 minute manager, right? Where you see something and you say something. So you're taking care of it and you're navigating through life's difficulties in real time. So you're not waiting for a year-end review or until that person has just buried themselves in more problems and dysfunction. So number 2 is the strategic decision. It's the choice that requires clarity, courage, and responsibility. This is what we must have as leaders. And number 3 is the growth task, right? The one that pushes our leadership capacity in our planning, in our studying, and creating systems and vision casting. John Maxwell said that if you say you're a leader, but you have no one following, you're only taking a walk. So it's important that you cast vision. It's important that people understand what it is that you want them to do so that they can do an effective job, even if it means that they have to eat a frog as well. And number 4 is, how do we apply the eat the frog strategy today? Number 1 is identify the frog. Ask yourself, what task would make the biggest impact if I did it today? What task would make the biggest impact if I did it today? Number 2, what am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable? What am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable? And thirdly, what one thing, if done early, would make the rest of the day smoother?
Eating that frog would.
Yeah. Even if you regurgitate it afterwards, because it's so gross.
It is stressful because if you put that off, it's always in the back of your mind, and you know it's got to get done. It's like, why aren't I doing it? But if you knock it off, your mind's clear and you can focus on other things.
So true, and then you feel successful too in some ways too.
Yeah,
It's so true.
So true. Let's look at the next part here. How to apply the eat the frog strategy is the second part of that is schedule it at the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Schedule it. No emails, no scrolling, no distractions. You start your day by winning the day. Right? You plunge in with both feet. You just get her done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Get it done. And the other thought is to protect the time. Protect the time. Leaders don't find the time, they make the time.
Mm-hmm.
They block it off, they guard it, and they honor it. They say that you have time for what you prioritize.
Mm.
Yep.
You have time for what you make important. Now, there's another lesson on figuring out what's most important. But if you know it's a frog, obviously you've got to nip it in the bud.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then lastly is celebrate progress. Every time you eat a frog, you build the mental and emotional strength. You're training yourself to handle bigger opportunities with less fear. Right? A lot of things that we do, or the reason we don't eat the frog typically, is because of all the things we've thought into it after the fact. But how many times, I bet it's more than not, how many times have we eaten the frog and got to the other side of it and put down our napkin and our fork and said, you know what, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah, that's true. I have.
Difficult as it was going to be, or that person handled that conversation a lot better than I thought they would. So a lot of times it's us, it's fear, it's worry that leads us to procrastinate.
Yep.
Here's our last thought for the day is the leadership reflection. Listen to this. You want to ask yourself and your team, what frog have I been avoiding? How will eating that frog change the direction of my day or my team or my church or my organization? And what does my willingness to face hard things say about my leadership? So leaders who eat the frog lead with courage, clarity, and consistency. By doing the hardest thing first, you unlock momentum, build trust, and set a tone that strengthens the entire organization. And I'll finish with this. Great leadership is not about avoiding frogs. It's about eating them with purpose. That's the thought of the day. So go eat the frog.